I'd like to call this committee of the whole meeting of Tuesday, May the 3rd, 2016. Order, please.
See you around on
And I honor that we are holding the meeting and living and being in our community on the traditional Tla'amin territory. I'd like to mention that that Mayor Formosa is away with leave. And I'd like to call for adoption of the agenda.
I have one change.
You have one change?
Through the chair, yes. The second 3.2 delegation has withdrawn. It seems that there's a flu bug that's caught up with them, so they will rebook another time.
Good. Thank you. Any other changes or additions or deletions to the agenda? We don't need it.
I'll move adoption.
Move.
I'll second.
Councillor Stetson. All in favor? Yes. Adoption of the minutes of the regular committee of the whole meeting held April 19th, 2016.
So moved.
All in favor? Unanimous? Did you get those?
I'm with you.
Okay, good, thank you. You're way ahead of me, actually. Okay, delegations. 3.1 is Dr. Hoffert here.
Don't.
Or
Blake is supposed to be here, but he's not here.
Rowe.
So I might look like the chief librarian, but I'm not.
We're not
I'm actually the treasurer of the yacht club, and Blake did send me a note this morning reminding me to be here on time, so I guess I know now why. What we're asking, we've been talking to staff about, is the yacht club would like to lease the south terminal, old barge terminal, from the city with the idea of improving it. We've been talking to several of the other local boating clubs, and so this is really an extension of our work that we've done with the small boat program at the DECO. And what we found is for the non-powered boats, so for small dinghies, kayaks, outriggers, that we really don't have a good launching point in the city, a good place to store and a good launching point. And what we'd like to do is work towards trying to turn that facility into having some space to store and eventually launch the small non-powered boats in the city. We think that has we have a great place here for sailing, for kayaking, and having a good place to launch. William Beach is not ideal because the tide there goes out a long way, and so low tide, particularly in the summer during the day, very hard to launch from there. We've been running our sailing from there. And mixing with the power boats is less than optimal. If you've been down there during fishing season, that is a very busy ramp. And most of the non-powered boats really just take too long to launch. So we're kind of in the way and a bit of a hazard in that. So what we'd like to do is to lease. We have some resources to start improving the look of that facility. I know there's a discussion with Coast Guard, and we will work with that depending on what the city does with Coast Guard. And we'd like to turn that facility into a community resource for small non-powered boats and the enthusiasts for that. So fairly simple request. We don't have a lot of detail yet. We have talked to Tor, and he said the first thing was come to committee of the whole and present the idea and take questions.
Questions?
I like the idea, and as one of the items you discussed, I've had 2, maybe 3 people now come up to me and say, is there a place where I can keep my kayak down by the water, store it? A lot of communities have storage available for a fee, like a monthly rent.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things we do. If you look at Granville Island, if you've been down there, there's a lot of kayak storage, very actively used. I lived in Lions Bay for a while, and there's a community storage space for a kayak. It makes it a lot easier to use your kayak with a place to launch it and store it. So that Dragon Boat Club has been looking for a facility, and also modeling somewhat on the Flying Club as a place where the different clubs can meet and have a facility there. And we have a bit of resources, and we'll look for more resources to try to make the facility useful and make it look better than it does. Because quite honestly, right now, I know it's an eyesore, and we'd like to see what we can do over the next 2-3 years to make it useful. The Commodore dresses much better than the treasurer. So.
Through the chair, so staff are under direction right now to issue an RFP for the reuse of that building for commercial interests. It doesn't mean that they both can't happen, and it's a great idea. What comes to mind for me is in Victoria, the Canoe Club, which is a thriving restaurant bar type thing with an actual canoe club associated with it, and they work together. So it doesn't mean that it can't happen, but there are just things to coordinate. So the issue with the RFP is intended in the next couple of months. So staff would seek direction to talk with the sailing club about options.
Councillor Hudley?
So yeah, that was pretty much what I was going to say. Are you suggesting that the sailing club submit something at the time the RFP goes out?
Through the chair, I don't think so. I think we just need to get down to brass tacks a bit about what the community objectives are and whether that can include the sailing club or we have to pick between one and the other.
So we just direct you to figure it out?
Yeah, please.
So directed.
So, having some connection to the Coast Guard, I've had lots of questions come at me, and there's been some discussion with the Director of Planning. But I'm not sure, is the last I heard was that the initiative from the Coast Guard had been handed from planning over to the engineering department, which seemed like a positive step. Are you at leave to give us any details, or is there any details to be shared with as far as that?
Through the chair, I'm unaware of any progress. We're waiting for Coast Guard to come back.
Right.
It's an interesting point, but a subtle detail about which member of staff it's with. But just in the context of what the sailing club is talking about, if the Coast Guard proceeds, it will be in addition to the building on the land side end, which will shape an L. So initial conversation with the Coast Guard had talked about whether they could reuse the actual existing building, and they made a call and said no. Dare I say, as a federal engineer for 20 years, it takes a while to get Ottawa to sign on. So that's where we are.
All right, thank you.
I would assume that any sort of staff movement would include some sort of community consultation on repurposing or reusing or delegating anything out.
Through the chair, we're not under direction for that, but if council wants to do that, that's fine. But we can work that in, but we're under direction to consider all options by way of an RFP. What I'm suggesting is we may want to have a conversation. If there's a community interest that you want to maintain, it shouldn't be competitive as part of the RFP. It should be a deliberate part of, first of all, are they mutually exclusive, the activities, or can they both happen at the same time in the same place, or those types of things. I would hate to see a community group having to be in a competitive situation with a commercial interest.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want that. My point is going to be, there's no reason we can't include in an RFP some provision for making space available or partnering with a local group if it meets community objectives for making space available for those activities, right? That would be ideal.
Thanks. Yeah, maybe we're putting the cart before the horse a little bit, because I think we've done 2 requests before and we've got no response. I'm not really seeing a lot of competition coming out for the space, but deal with it, like for public information, it depends on who we get responses from, and deal with it from there, decide how we want to move forward.
Through the chair, we were in process initially just for the removal of the building.
Yeah.
And then council said they thought there might be some contacts.
Yeah.
We started that process, and Coast Guard came forward and said maybe we're interested in the whole building, so we put the whole thing on hold. And now Coast Guard has said not within the existing footprint, but attached to the end of it. So now we're back to considering options for the old building.
Okay. So just so I'm clear, oh, sorry.
Certainly from our point of view, that working with any other down there would be great. So we just think it's a good space and it would make a good community resource for a lot of different of the water-based sports that we do.
Through the chair, if I could, the one challenge is that if there's a commercial activity there, then our grant, our Crown grant requires that we pay the province something more than the nominal few dollars a year, up to $48,000. So if we're going to have a little bit of commercial, we need to have enough commercial to make it viable. And I don't misunderstand me. I would never think of saying that a sailing club or any community organization should be looking at $48,000 a year rent. But we have to balance off, if there is a commercial interest, that's a given, that it starts with a $48,000 lease, which if it's a community benefit, it might be just from the vendor through the city to the province, and the city takes no profit benefit. So there's things like that just to be sorted out. Because it's not owned outright by the city, it's a Crown grant.
So I hear you saying that this is in process right now, and discussions with the...
Well, it's very timely.
Yeah, okay.
Terry's checked in with staff, and it's
Yeah.
very timely because we haven't issued the next RFP because we were waiting for Coast Guard to say that they have no impact on the existing building, which they have. So whether they happen or not seems to be secondary to the use of the existing building.
And just because we do have some resources in our treasury now, which we could make some immediate improvements to the building. So when we point to deciding, we have a small amount of money.
I believe the negotiations have started.
Yes.
So just so if we're clear on the direction, then council's directing staff to discuss options with the Power Yacht Club, and then do you want to report back from staff in that regard? And then at the same time, I'm hearing the CAO say that staff's already under the direction to issue an RFP for commercial purposes, and so that will just carry on as previously directed.
And through the chair, obviously one might drastically affect the other.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I just want to apologize for arriving slightly late. It's actually beyond my control. I'm to the mayor and the council, and I'm Blake Hofford. And thank you, Terry, for doing the presentation. Just one thing I want to add, and if I'm saying the obvious again, I apologize, is that the little building to the west part, which is separate, although attached to the main building, is that we're willing to sort of take over and utilize that for both ourselves and Molding Club members for nonprofit, including beautify it, paint it, clean it up, and that is not totally related to any other things and else like that's going on for the Coast Guard or any other plans, and we're willing to be sort of, shall we say, convicted on short notice. We just that it's a shame that facility is basically not being used and it's actually deteriorating, and we're planning to put money into it and improve it and use it, not just for us, for other clubs. So even that little building, the little white building to the north, to the west part, if that can be considered separately, we could still make a positive impact on that area, and that we could give us the key. We can start that tomorrow.
Through the chair, that's the office that's on the water?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Thank you.
thank you very much for coming, Dr. Hofford. Great. 3.2 is no longer on the agenda. We go to 4.1, letter dated April 8, 2016, from the Honorable Peter Fassbender regarding upcoming consultation with local government about regulation of sharing economy, transportation, and accommodation businesses. What's our pleasure with this letter? Councilor Brewer and then Councilor Smith.
I would suggest, in opinions, there's probably about 7 opinions from the 7 members of council on this. So I think if individuals want to respond to this letter directly, I'd encourage us to do so. And I would just add that you may have seen the note that went around. iCompass is putting on a webinar May 10th related to Airbnb and other short-term accommodation type info. So that might be worth taking in. I think Melanie sent an invite out on that. So that would help inform any response we may choose to make on the letter, but otherwise I'd suggest just receiving it.
Any other comments?
Yeah,
Councilor Spencer.
just receive it, and yeah, we're sort of not there yet to give a unified comment, I think. As Councillor Brewer said, that we all sort of have ideas, but we haven't really struggled much yet with it.
Okay, so receive this letter. Thank you. On to 4.2. Letter dated April 12, 2016 from Dylan Parsons regarding addition of stop sign on Cedar Street. Councillor Scotson?
Yes, this issue has come up before. Probably Councillor Hathaway and Councillor Palm recall it coming to council from the Council ratepayers. It seems to crop up periodically. People on Cedar Street seem to now and again talk about the traffic that gets diverted. People perceive that they're going to make up time on their way to Wildwood from Cranberry by turning up Aspen and then going down Cedar. I know the response that the Ratepayers Association had was that emergency services didn't like the idea of a stop sign there because, or speed bumps, they didn't like that idea. There was also, I think at one time, like a traffic calming circle idea was proposed by residents, and a similar thing, emergency services didn't really like that idea. And there was a traffic study done, and I think that determined that the speed, people weren't really speeding, but I spoke to some residents and they said, well, yeah, but they had the counters down as you're approaching the stop sign. They weren't sort of in the middle, so people are naturally slowing down because they're approaching the stop sign. So it does seem to crop up from time to time. And it seems like there are more families in town site these days. I'm not sure, maybe we can, I thought it seemed like when the pump station went in, it seemed like a natural, just a dead end Aspen there and not have it go through. But again, I think emergency services wanted more access, so I'm not sure. But it does crop up from time to time.
Councillor Brewer?
Yeah, I took a look at this spot and it makes a lot of sense to me. When this came up before, I think the suggestion was for speed bumps there, which didn't make a lot of sense, but where Mr. Parsons is suggesting a stop sign, it is a steep hill right down to that point at the intersection. I kind of like the idea, it makes sense. I see the rationale for it. It's got a pretty good supported letter there, petition. We've done it up at the Music Academy there when it came to council 2, maybe 3 years ago. I think I'd like to get some info back from staff on just installing one, or just going ahead and directing to install it. I think maybe that's what we did a couple of years ago.
Councillor Mather?
Thanks. Yeah, I don't know, I don't recall why we didn't put one in there before. I don't think it would be because of emergency services, because when they've got the lights and siren on, they don't care about stuff.
Yeah, it might have been speed bumps.
It's not
Yeah.
the slowest down.
And yeah, I can't even see them taking a truck through that little road there. It looks like it fits in, so there must have been some rationale behind us turning it down before, so I'm wondering if we could ask staff to get us that rationale and then we can do it.
I could through the chairs and put the manager of engineering services on the spot, because Frank's the one who does the calculations.
Well, of course.
Sure. Traffic stop signs are not a means of speed control. The best means of speed control would be traffic calming, as Councillor Scatchan said. We will look at it, we'll monitor it, and there's a couple of items that we can do to do some traffic calming. It's a really wide road, so we'll look at that, and we'll put out our counters on a gate. But stop signs do not control speed. Police do, and our signs, the sign that the police have, the traffic sign, that would, at least acknowledge to people that they're speeding.
Councillor Scotson, and then Councillor Brewer, and then Councillor Palmer.
And perhaps, an alternate sort of traffic calming I've seen pop up on my news feed is some communities on smaller roads have painted, you've had a community painting day and you've done a design on the road, and that seems to slow drivers down a good deal, and it's, pretty cost effective and beautiful.
Councilor Burke?
Do you recall where the counters were set up? Was it
I'm not sure.
back up further up the hill, I think, perhaps, right, rather than,
Was it in the middle?
I think the like 50-kilometer zone, and I believe the last counters, the 85 percentile traffic was 47.2 kilometers, something of that nature. There was a few speeders and those came down. But yeah, I'm not sure where it was, and we could set it out again. We've got our traffic counters here, so.
yeah,
The volume's not very high in that area.
Yeah.
Like I think in a week's period there was like 12 to 1400 vehicles, which is not really a lot.
But, yeah, when I went and checked it out, I was surprised that I'd forgotten, I guess, that there's quite a steep little hill that drops down right to Ash there. So it does make sense that that's where they're seeing people speed through there and then slow down once they get through to the next stop sign.
Narrowing of the road would be something that we could look at first, traffic calming, but we'd have to look at all options.
So through the chair, can I suggest that you direct staff to take a look at this issue? There's a million ways to skin the cat. You can do one on one street and it impacts on the next street, and that type of thing. So staff, I'm hearing from the manager, would be quite happy to take a look at this. Also, the point is when the cars, the offending cars get out to Arbutus, that stop sign doesn't do a lot either. Because they're blowing through that one, because I drive that route often. So there's a whole gamut of things. If you take a look at Oak Street, because of the oak trees, it has a common effect because of their incursion into the roadway.
Councilor Paul and then Councilor Stetson.
Yeah, just a short comment. I do recollect whatever argument was put forward in our staff report previously was strong enough, obviously, for us to do nothing at the time. You know, in light of maybe younger families moving into the area and speed being the issue, and I see 9 signatures or homeowners that have signed a petition, perhaps this could be considered for a community improvement project, and they could all chip in for a speed bump with paint on it to slow the traffic down on that hill. But I know speed bumps, according to staff, are a costly item.
Councilor Stetson.
I lost what I was gonna.
Okay, so staff to, anybody else, any other staff to have a look at it? See who suggests? And report back. Keep hearing, thanks.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, okay, 4.3, letter dated April 14, 2016 from the BC Government and Service Employees Union regarding concerns about the sale of wine in grocery stores. Any comments?
Proceed.
Yeah, not involved.
I have a question, if nobody else has anything. I'm pretty sure that our 3 large supermarkets are not yet selling wine or any other alcohol. But in view that the 1 kilometer distance between retailers applies to all other liquor retailers, do we know if our local supermarkets are planning on selling alcohol?
Through the chair, I believe the government's only issued 6 licenses province-wide so far, with maybe another 2. I suspect they're really slow in rolling this out, so I suspect that it's not going to be soon coming to Powell River.
Okay.
Yeah, so I suspect that we can wait and see how it's impacting other communities, if at all.
Thank you. Councilor Burke.
And just a comment, I think you always have to be careful with the stats that are recorded in these kind of letters.
Yeah.
Because I went and dug up, the Center for Addictions Research of BC info that was referenced here. And there was not an increase of 655 hospitalizations and 31 more alcohol-related deaths. That's how it's presented here.
Yeah, more than Florida or where? Like, give me
There was an estimate that it could based on consumption levels. So I think we have to be cautious with any letter from anybody as to how the stats are reported.
Yeah.
Through the chair. Let's talk to the director of planning about this. He's absent on vacation right now. And he said that the best metric that he could give you is there are 10 liquor sales outlets in town. Which you have to scratch your head to get all 10, but there are 10. And for a regional population of 20,000, that's saturation. that's the best that staff could do as a measure.
Thank you. So received? Great. On to reports. 5.1, report dated May 3, 2016 from the senior planner regarding development variance permit 193, request to relax works and services provisions for parcel fronting an undeveloped portion of Gordon Avenue. Andrew Point. Mr. Gow.
Good afternoon, Council. I have some visuals here, so I'm going to go old school. It's a novelty for me.
Taking it out.
You're rubbing salt in the wound, dude.
Not at all. Okay, so bear with me here.
Are you trying to say we're old school, Mr.
No, not at all. You know where I'm going with that.
Say we're techno bitches.
I want that to be, is that okay? For others? Yeah, great.
Representative.
Not going to be able to stand in front of it, but okay. Good afternoon, Council, through the Chair. The intent of this report is to consider issuance of a development variance permit to allow development on a vacant parcel that has legal frontage on an undeveloped portion of Gordon Avenue. So before I go any further, I'd like to just point out Mr. Warren Bean is here as a representative of the applicant. Should Council have any questions that I am unable to answer, you could direct your questions to Mr. Bean after this presentation. So I would like to start with drawing your attention to the diagram. Just to locate you, this is Penticton Street here, Marine Avenue on the far side over there. For those of you who know the Seawalk, the Nootka kind of entrance is somewhere up there. This is the undeveloped portion of Gordon Street that I referred to in the report. And for those of you who can see this tiny little area, this is the undeveloped lane that the subject property highlighted in red also fronts onto. Adjacent properties, I mentioned in the report that 2 of them are owned by the city. So this piece here and this piece are city-owned property. And the only other property that fronts onto Gordon Street, that only has frontage onto Gordon Street, is this other piece here that is a developed, single-family developed as single-family residential. So, as I mentioned, the subject property is there highlighted in red. It was subdivided in 1976, or legally subdivided, and it measures roughly 900 square meters. At the time of subdivision, no works and services were required for either Gordon Avenue or the undeveloped lane that I touched on. Shortly after the subdivision, an easement, again shown here in red, was registered on title of the adjacent property to allow for access and to ensure that any servicing could be available for marine. So 40 years later, we're jumping to today, from 1976. The current owner would like to develop this property, and so we came in to meet with staff to understand what was required. And based on the city's infrastructure design and construction bylaw, the applicant is required to construct Gordon Avenue complete with water and sanitary mains from Penticton Street. So, okay, down to here. Because the cost of these is prohibitive, the applicant has applied for a development variance permit to relax works and services along Gordon Avenue and the undeveloped lane. Only council can relax these kind of services, so that's why we're here today. So in terms of the report itself, I made some, I pointed out different aspects, but one of the key recommendations that made its way into the recommendation itself is the requirement for a Section 219 covenant to be registered on title that would require a fire suppression system to be installed in all habitable structures built on site. This recommendation came from the fire chief, and it is consistent with, and it's based on his assessment that fire trucks would not be able to enter the property because of this narrow easement. So it just would require more time, I guess, in an emergency situation. So the fire suppression system would allow for that time in terms of protecting lives and possibly structures. This recommendation is in line with recent recommendations the city's building department has required in other similar circumstances. And then from planning's perspective, or planning staff's perspective, because the adjacent parcels are already developed, as I mentioned, the city properties, and then this one developed, the likelihood of this being considered some sort of precedent is limited. We're talking about a single parcel along the undeveloped portion of Gordon Street, so not likely to set precedent. So, and when considered in light of the integrated community sustainability plan and the policies that speak to infill and the discouragement of rural sprawl, staff support this proposal, and yes, develop a proposal to relax the works and services along the undeveloped portion of Gordon Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Swenson?
I just have one question about the other property that's on the undeveloped portion of Gordon Avenue. Presumably, fire services wouldn't be able to reach that one either, but do they have the covenant on their property, or was that, you don't?
The research we did, we didn't find anything that led us to believe that. I would suggest that drawing a line in the sand and moving forward. And the recommendation from our fire chief was to require this, so that's why we're moving forward on that. And it's
curious.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Swenson? Or Councillor Hathaway, sorry.
So the one that's existing there, do they access it off Marine?
That's correct. They also access it off of Marine. There's a right-of-way that exists for city services just north of the existing, or the easement that I showed there. They access it from there as well.
And the subject property would access from Marine?
That's correct.
So I don't really see where there would even be a delay in fire response. I mean, it's just like a long driveway.
The comment from the fire chief was that they wouldn't direct a fire truck down that easement, the narrow, because it's
too narrow.
That's correct.
I went down and looked at it, and it's very narrow.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, I didn't realize it was narrow. It didn't look that narrow on here. Thank you.
Councillor Brewer?
Yeah, the recommendation makes sense to me based on what you've outlined, but the bringing up the two city-owned properties sort of begs some further discussion. We've kind of touched on it in strategic planning, and I know we've probably had some discussions. There's probably a number of these sort of orphaned properties throughout the city. I think it'd be nice to have some kind of direction to staff. I know that's probably the intent of management at some point, but to bring something back to us that's got a summary of all our properties and different categories and what makes sense to hang on to or develop. Because one could argue, if we've got those two lots, should we not look at doing something with Gordon, although the cost would probably be prohibitive anyway.
Through the chair. Thank you. Staff is working on that. So we're putting together staff resources to have a centralized clerical function for all our lands and easements and statutory right-of-ways, with a view to having an overview for you in the early fall of all of our properties and obligations, because we have a large number of easements and statutory right-of-ways which were put in place with the best of intent and that may not be needed now, but also the land. So that will be coming to you in the early fall.
Councillor Paul?
Yeah, first of all, just through the chair, I want to say thanks for the old school approach. Appreciate it. But I like the recommendations put forward. It seems to make a lot of sense for all of the reasons are outlined. How did the proponent react to the report? Have they seen it yet, or given you any feedback?
Through the chair, I have not spoken with the applicant after telling them that the report would come forward to this meeting. Not to suggest that there won't be some conversation, it's just felt more appropriate to bring it here first.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Hathaway?
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm clear, so that the two city properties, if we were ever going to sell those, then we would have to develop Gordon Avenue because there's no way to them.
Through the chair, one would expect that. We are always the first to uphold our own services bylaw.
If there's no further discussion on this, because this is a variance permit, there is some public consultation involved. So if council, you have the authority under your delegation bylaw to make this motion that's recommended to give staff direction to proceed, and then they can proceed with the mail out to get it out to the residents, and then it would come back to council for consideration.
We want to do that?
So moved.
So through the chair, for the benefit of those listening and viewing, I'd like to hear that motion, please.
I'll move that staff be directed to give notice in accordance with section 498 of the Local Government Act of council's intention to consider issuance of a development variance permit 193 for Lot B, District Lot 1423, Block 1, New Westminster Land District, Group 1, Plan 16529, to relax all works and services provisions as they pertain to the development of Gordon Avenue and an adjacent lane as per City of Powell River Infrastructure Design and Constitution Bylaw 2225-2009, subject to the following condition: A, registration of a Section 219 covenant against the title that would require all habitable structures erected on the parcel to be fitted with fire suppression systems that are designed and installed by registered professionals.
Seconder? Councilor Richmond? All in favor?
I just want to make a comment,
Sorry.
if I could. I think you said section 498 and it's 499 of the Local Government Act.
Yep.
To make sure we're on.
Oh, it says 498 in the recommendation at the bottom.
Oh, through the chair.
So maybe
If you
we
read the
need to-
recommendation at the top.
At the
that's
top,
one
sorry.
That's been vetted by staff.
So it's section
Thank you.
499, just to make that
Yep.
correction.
Yep.
Thanks.
All in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Yes, now,
Put the printer in there.
5.2, report dated May 3, 2016, from the senior planner regarding proposed zoning bylaw amendment 2440, 2016, for a vacant parcel located at Duncan Street and Westview Avenue. Mr. Gow.
Through the chair. The intent of this report is to consider rezoning a vacant parcel located near the intersection of Duncan Street and Westview Avenue from R2 single and two-family residential to RM1 compact residential. Again, I'd like to point out that the applicant is here with us today in attendance, Mr. Skolinski. There in the back, should, again, council have questions that they feel they want answered, and I'm unable to do that, so please, at the end, feel free. Again, I'll start with the diagram. So just to locate us all, this is the property literally a stone's throw away. We are, City Hall is this parcel up here. This is a parcel bounded by Duncan and Westview Avenue. For those of you familiar with the sidewalk down, there is a set of public stairs to the north of the property. The property measures about 810 square meters. As I said, it's currently zoned as R2 single and two-family residential. This limits the development to a single duplex. Rezoning this parcel is required as the applicant has, the applicant's intent is to construct a 4-unit row-style housing development. RM1 compact residential is intended for ground-oriented developments of which row houses are permitted. So the applicant has provided us with some conceptual drawings. This is one of the drawings that we received. We received, floor plans and elevations. This is the intent. This is to give you a sense as to what the applicant intends on the site. With the orientation towards the ocean, these two-level units are staggered to create separate patio spaces and individual entrances. The 2-bedroom units measure approximately 1,200 square meters. So in respect of the Sustainable Efficient Community Plan, the property is assigned a land use designation of urban residential medium density. Lands within this designation are intended to accommodate increased density and multifamily development. In terms of the Integrated Community Sustainability Plan, the proposal scores highest locating higher density developments in close proximity to commercial amenities promotes pedestrian-oriented developments where inhabitants can be less dependent on their car. For these reasons, staff support this proposal. So, one of the concerns, and I articulate this in the report, is when we received this application, this is the received application, staff had a great concern actually with the proposed parking. So, as proposed, 8 cars were proposed to be parked perpendicular to Westview Avenue. And this would require that cars are either backing into or out of Westview or onto Westview Avenue, and could be a tremendous safety issue for both passing vehicles and cyclists. And just to remind council, Westview Avenue, or this portion from Joyce down to Marine, has been identified as a primary cycling route on the city's cycling master plan. So, as I said, this was an issue, and I took the liberty of putting together a very quick sketch. So understand this is the 15-minute sketch that one uses to put in front of a proponent to say, hey, what about this? What about shifting the orientation of your parking, reducing the number of stalls to 4 as opposed to 8, and shifting them, like I say, 90 degrees to get parallel parking. One of the other pieces to this, and I again touch on it in the report, is the idea of shifting or changing Westview Avenue to a one-way through at least a portion of the avenue to have cars going towards the water, one way towards the water, as a potential way to also deal with safety issues on the street. That was a conversation that had been brought up by engineering a while ago. Planning heard this during the work we were doing to research this report, and decided that we would put it in front of you as this is what we've heard. Is there any interest in looking into this and how it might alleviate some of the safety issues associated with this, but also promote a better cycling infrastructure as well? So, just to summarize, in terms of improving the curb appeal, staff really felt that shifting the orientation of the cars to parallel would do a better job and would promote safety. And so, for those reasons, staff support this proposal.
Questions? Councilor Brewer?
I really like your 15-minute mark up there, because that is a bad spot right at the bottom of Westview there. It's problematic at the best times right now, so I can imagine people backing into it to head up the hill would be an issue. And also it raises a question for me, that intersection just down below is horrible for pedestrians. Just see, people use it all the time, they don't go down, across, and over and up later on. We need to do something with that corner with the rocks there. People walk it all the time. I see people jumping across there all the time. It's just not safe. That's something I'd like staff to look at as well at some point. And having this before us kind of raises the question again for me. So that's one. I like the idea of the increased density. It makes sense with our OCP. That all fits. I like your idea with the parking there. I think the proponent should consider that in subsequent designs. But I'd really like us to consider asking staff to bring something back on recommendations for that corner to make it more pedestrian friendly, because it's an accident waiting to happen right now in my mind.
Through the chair, could you be a bit more specific? We're talking pedestrians coming from the heights of Westview down?
Yeah, right at the bottom of Westview. People will walk down there, they'll walk across Westview, they won't go down towards the hotel there. They'll cut across, they'll walk around on the cobbles.
Okay.
They're barely making it around
So
the cobbles.
connecting.
And then they'll jump across Duncan Street.
So they're going from Westview to Duncan on that short piece of Marine?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to say through the chair, I didn't touch on this, but the proponent was really excited about the suggestion, and when we sat down and discussed, we started talking about the integrated community sustainability plan and the idea of end-of-trip facilities. So when I pointed out that this is a primary cycling route, I think I started a small fire, and Mr. Smolinski is interested in how he might adapt his property to have, whether it's bike lockers, bike racks, kind of front and center, so that this actual development speaks to the integrated community sustainability plan. Being that it's on the primary cycling route, it starts to not only, it really speaks to it, is what I'm getting at. So I'm happy that Mr. Smolinski was interested in it. It seems like a really positive step forward.
Mr. Burke?
And that's good to hear, because I think the location is going to appeal to probably people that are for one-car families or one-car couples, not two-vehicle families. That would be my guess.
Mr. Bishop?
Thanks. Yeah, I also am in favor of that redesign of the parking area, which, is only one parking spot per unit, which is great. I just wonder, do we need to further amend the parking requirements for that zone, or this isn't 1.5 or 2 parking spaces per?
Through the chair, with the end-of-trip facilities, we actually get it down to 4, so that was
great.
Part of the rationale on staff's part.
Great. Any other comments? I'd like to say I also really like the idea, and I think that the whole concept of the development fits very well in that location, considering everything else that's around it. It wasn't clear to me whether this isn't going to be a strata. Would be, or is it going to be subdivided, or will the development be a strata development?
Through the chair, now maybe Mr. Smolinski wants to correct me, but my understanding is it would be stratified. I think it's strata, yes.
Okay.
Through the chair, that's not integral, that's a curiosity, but it's not integral to your decision.
I was just, if it was going to be subdivided, then we'd see this again.
No.
No? Oh.
Oh,
okay.
But I do have a question in that regard through the chair. Is this a development permit area?
Yes. Through the chair, when zoning goes from R2 to RM1, because it's multifamily, and that's the intent of this development, there would be a multifamily development permit required.
So then the development permit would come to council for approval?
That's correct.
Oh, okay. Good. Well, number
So to council?
Council?
Yes, so through the chair, this is a zoning amendment, so this would go to council, you give its initial readings, and if you give it initial readings, then we'd be looking for direction to proceed to a public hearing, and then you would do that and hear from the public in this regard.
Awesome. Councilor Paul?
Yes, the chair, just to clarify then, as far as process, we take this forward at this point in time. Is this contingent on any rezone or one-way traffic process?
Through the chair, and it's not contingent, although when dealing with Mr. Smolinski, that issue came up for staff again, that there's a potential opportunity or value to making Westview one-way, but that's been mentioned by staff as a point that's been raised, but it's not integral to the approval ranges. Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah, so quite frankly, I think going from 8 parked cars to 4 addresses a fair bit of the concern, but then it was making sure that nothing about this development would be adverse towards having biking out front, and that's been satisfied by the developer.
And that's why I asked the question, because I am kind of intrigued about the biking aspect, one-way traffic. Can staff give us any idea if we were to go in that direction? Obviously, we have a public hearing. What type of timeline are we looking for if we were to start?
Through the chair, actually, you don't need, the city is its traffic authority. But this problem that staff has is there may seem to be logic for it, but the block to go the whatever way, one would think that it would run downhill, probably. For someone who wants to go uphill, it's quite a large, cumbersome block to get around. And then you end up tempting people to come down Westview and hang it quickly up to Duncan. So staff's taken a look at a number of things. It's unfortunately not a conveniently square, small block.
Great, council.
Council?
Thank you. Okay, 5.3, report dated May 3, 2016, from the interim chief financial officer regarding the 5-year financial plan 2016-2020, bylaw 2441, 2016.
Thank you, council. I put for you today a draft report, or a report with the draft bylaw for an amendment to the 5-year financial plan. Council had previously adopted the 5-year plan in December, and subsequent to that time, we've identified a few issues that need to be amended with the bylaw. In the report, you will see on page 3, we've listed all of the adjustments that need to happen to the bylaw that was presented in December. There's 2 primary columns. The carry forward and corrections are amendments that need to be made to the bylaw in order to provide the authority for some of the carry forward projects that were initiated in 2015 and have carried forward into 2016. There are a few corrections to the calculations that were in the spreadsheets that created the bylaw. We are drawing some funds from reserve to satisfy the requirements for some of the carry forwards. We have removed the additional revenues that were initially levied for recreation fees and charges for the in-kind grant that were provided to organizations. And we had a few things like retroactive pay for IAFF that was budgeted in 2016 and it's no longer required in 2016 as it was expensed in 2015. That covers off the majority of the adjustments. And as staff look at those are more non-discretionary type adjustments. They're things that basically need to happen in order to keep our bylaw legal and compliance with what the activities are. And then on the second column, there are some new budget items. We have received a grant of $10,000 to go towards a potable water study. So that's what the grant is, and the study is down below. So it would require $5,000 of funding from the water reserve to facilitate that. Then we've got a number of other small adjustments, insurance, legal fees, some wages for some HR work that we've been working on. We've added the grants that are being provided from the community forest. There's repairs to the McGuffey Creek footbridge. And then on the next page, there's some additional capital works. The sign and the park at Marine and Alberti, Ernie, are being funded from the community forest. They're city projects. Some repairs to the domestic hot water system at the recreation complex. There's some strategic land acquisitions along the waterfront, some of those to satisfy the requirements for the sewage treatment facility. There's another $200,000 for land acquisition for sewage treatment facility. And then some further upgrades to the wastewater treatment plant. The next sections demonstrates how the additional funding is going to be provided. For the majority, it's coming from reserves and surpluses. And the $600,000 at the bottom is with respect to the one of the lands. If we do wind up acquiring that land, we may need some short-term financing to acquire it. Although that's still a work in progress, and at this point it hasn't been determined what the outcome of that will be. It's just ensuring that the funds are there should council choose to go down that road at a later time. So with that, I present the report and draft bylaw for council consideration.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Brewer.
Got one question with regard to some of the sort of spreadsheet typo errors. I think the former CFO had talked about migrating from a spreadsheet system to a software system. Is that still something looked at? I know the cost was quite substantial.
It is. The cost for a separate standalone budget system for an organization this size would probably range between $40,000 and $100,000 to acquire a standalone system. What we've been discussing in the finance department is using our current software program to actually data enter all of the budget figures into it to do the checks and balances to make sure that we can eliminate the calculation errors. So I've been working with staff on trying to develop some of those procedures to ensure that we can eliminate the calculation errors in the future. So that would be the hope for next year, that we wouldn't have those types of issues.
And then my other point would be that most of these, like you say, are sort of non-discretionary really. So the only real new one that we weren't quite aware of are the repairs required for the McGuffey Creek Bridge. We did discuss it at finance, but it's the only real new one that maybe we haven't discussed before or been aware of. And it's one I think we don't want to let go. It makes sense to maintain the integrity of that structure.
Any other questions or comments? No,
Council?
Council?
If I can, through the chair, so I think at the finance committee, you were advised that staff felt rather than try and take the existing 5-year financial plan and do a bunch of amendments from within it, what staff is proposing is a whole new bylaw. And I know that you're aware that the tax rate bylaw has to be adopted before May 15th, and in order to have that, you need to have your financial plan bylaw in place. So we have anticipated that council would want to take this to council for its initial reading. So we have included this report and the bylaw for Thursday night's council meeting. It is on the agenda for consideration.
So the other recommendation that should go to council then is rescinding the previous.
That will be part, I think that's part of the 5-year financial plan bylaw.
But it is
Yeah.
within the
Yeah,
bylaw
it's
already.
spelled out.
Perfect.
Great. Council? Thank you. Okay, 5-4 report dated May 3, 2016 from the interim CFO regarding the annual property tax rates bylaw 24-26-2016.
Thank you. So once the bylaw is formally adopted, and we do have a bylaw that is active and valid right now, that determines the amount of taxation that's required to actually meet the objectives of the financial plan. With the amended financial plan, we're not amending the amount of taxation that's expected to come to support the spending program. So we've used the taxation figures that were in the bylaw that was set in December, and we've determined what the rates need to be in order to meet those objectives. Now, in the financial plan in December, there were some policies and objectives with respect to the taxation allocation amongst the different groups. This bylaw reflects those objectives that were established by council at that time, and it sets the rates for general municipal purposes, the regional district, and the regional hospital district. Within the body of the report, we've also provided a table that summarizes the rates and the percentage and the allocations amongst the groups for council's consideration as well. So with that, bylaw before you for consideration.
Thank you very much. Councilor Svensson.
No sign of the school rates yet?
We have not received them as far as I know at this
Okay.
point.
Thank you.
Once the rates are received, we will be updating the summary sheet that we provided to council at the finance committee, and we will make that available for the public on our website.
Councilor Paul.
And through the chair, so just to be clear, at this point in time with this submission, there has been no rate changes to any class at this point.
So rate changes, meaning?
Well, I'm talking major industry or flat tax, there's been no changes, correct?
The only, I shouldn't say, previous council had set an objective of reducing the flat tax by 5% per year. So this bylaw incorporates that policy as well and reduces the flat tax by 5%. And that shifts the burden of that tax over onto the variable assessment rate. So it will lower flat tax a little bit, but it will increase on the variable rate. So those property owners with higher assessments will carry a larger portion of that flat tax burden. If that makes sense.
But through the chair, there's only a residential flat tax, right?
That's correct.
So it's just a movement within the residential tax class.
That's correct. So, and the rest of the allocation amongst the groups is based on the policy that council reviewed and established in December.
So just so I'm perfectly clear then, what we have been charging for major industry, that number has not changed?
Through the chair, no, you've got a tax revitalization bylaw that's quite specific about that.
Thank you.
Councilor Brewer.
Yeah, and that tax rebate bylaw is set for this year and next year, 2017. So we won't be revisiting that until, or we can't revisit it until September, August, September next year.
Through the chair, you have to set a new one if you're going to by October of 2017.
I have a question if I can. So how does the Ministry of Community Services record our major industry tax rate then? Will it be in the tables, those tables they provide? Will it be the 43.7 or will it be the adjusted?
I would expect it would be. One of the things that I took a close look at this year was the tax revitalization bylaw. In that bylaw, it actually specifies the rate of 43.76183 in the body of that bylaw. And the tax revitalization exemption is the difference between that and the 2.75 million that they're required to pay. Because the revitalization bylaw spells that out explicitly, we wanted to ensure that the tax rate corresponds with that. And the reduction is the rate differential. We will be applying it so that the net tax for major industry is at 2.75. I expect that there is a line on the reports that go to the province that we would be able to specify what the revitalization tax exemption portion is so that we can report the net tax effect of doing that. And if not, we'll make sure it's very clear to them.
I think it's, through the chair, I think it's probably recorded in another column as an adjustment to the full tax assessment. Yeah.
Anything else? Seeing none, to council?
Council.
Thank you very much.
So through the chair again, this recognizing the dates that are coming up in May, so we have included this on the May 5th council meeting as well, so you can consider this on Thursday night.
Thank you. Excellent. Community engagement reports. Have you been doing any engaging? Councilor Sampson.
Just a couple of points, a little update on the Syrian refugee groups. There hasn't really been a lot of movement. They have applied for families, they've identified some families, but they're still working through all the paperwork. So the steering committee has been meeting, but the larger group has not really met because the families aren't close to being here yet. But once families are closer to being in Powell River, I anticipate that the larger group will get together and all the volunteers required for housing and furniture and so forth will be engaged. And I've got the Western Forest Community Advisory Group next week. So have something after that.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Hathaway.
Thanks. I'd just like to comment that I attended the little retirement do for our fire chief down in Lead, who retires after 32 years of service. So just to wish him well and thank him for his 32 years of service.
Councillor Brewer.
Yeah, just a couple things. I attended Tourism's AGM last Wednesday, and it was a great AGM. It was held up in Lund at the hotel there. They've got a full board again. They actually had to have elections for the board, which is nice to see for a non-profit like that. Lots of interest from folks wanting to participate. Lots of good presentations and discussion about their work they do with Sunshine Coast Tourism. As you know, Tourism Powell River is our destination marketing organization for us locally, and they partner with Sunshine Coast Tourism. That's the destination marketing organization for the whole Sunshine Coast. And a little update, they're hoping to hear soon on municipal and regional district tax, the 2% hotel room tax as it's commonly called. Hopefully by later this summer, in which case perhaps funds would start rolling for extra marketing by the fall, if not early next year, which will finally put us on par with a lot of other regions that have that in place. For example, Tofino, but of course it's Tofino, they've got lots of hotel room tax, but I think their budget for marketing is close to $1 million. So we're competing with some of those regions without the dollars behind it. So they do a really good job, Sunshine Coast Tourism and Tourism Powell River, leveraging the dollars they do have. And the other thing I participated in don't know if Councilor Leishman was gonna touch on it, but we both participated along with Director Colin Palmer with the museum in a bit of a visioning, strategic planning session where they're starting to look at what do we want to look like 10 years out. Obviously they're bursting at the walls for all the artifacts they've got. Clownman was represented, all the museum staff were there. We were there, and some of the board members were there as well. Really good session. So the vision at this point, it went through, okay, do we want a bigger museum? Where should it be? What kind of location? South Willingdon Beach was mentioned just very briefly, and then we moved on. So the existing site is probably where they're going to land. They're going to do up a little report that'll then be shared with the 3 local governments for all of us to look at. And there was no decision making there, it was just a bunch of sharing good ideas. One of the other ideas that's been kicked around is tourism at some point would like to be located down there, so the museum and tourism have been talking about co-locating, which makes a lot of sense. The other idea we've heard a lot about is the need for a bit of a community art gallery, if you will, or exposition space for art exhibits, and that was discussed as well. So we look forward to a report coming out of that. Bert Finnemore did a great job working us through that. That's my bit of update. Thanks.
Thank you.
I just had a question for Councillor Brewer. Why so long for the MRDT, the 2% tax? I mean, they've got everything, there's no more hearings, there's no more input, there's nothing, they just have to say yes or no.
It's with
the minister.
It's with the minister, and it has to go to cabinet. It was there before, and then the ministry received a couple letters from some accommodation owners questioning the process, and so it got kicked back, so they had to go through the whole process again. They meet all the requirements for the application process. It's a bit onerous, and if you recall, I think it might have been ADICC or even UBCM, there was a motion at one point saying the province should just require this to be a standard. It's another one of those classic things where every region has to go through the process. It's quite onerous. It's hard for the accommodators to understand who's eligible or not, and it just takes a while.
So this has been a really long time. I guess I'm wondering, could our MLA help in speeding it up? Maybe somebody from the tourism board might want to see if that could happen.
Yeah, or do you want to be cautious with MLAs getting injected into those processes, I guess, sometimes. He did provide a letter at one point, I think, the first time around.
Yeah, first time around, yeah.
I think it's well in hand now. There's good support. People see the value in it. I think part of the hesitancy initially was some people questioned the value of the full Sunshine Coast regional marketing, and now they see that it's reaping rewards for us. So I think there's an understanding that if you increase that budget by, it's estimated to be anywhere from 250,000 to 300,000, it'll make quite a difference.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Keep your fingers crossed. It'll be
Okay.
good for us.
Thank you. Councillor Baum?
Yeah, through the chair, just want to ask Councillor Leishman a couple of questions before I give my little spiel here. The community group that was bringing the speakers to town for Earth Month, were they responsible for bringing Guy to town?
Yes.
Yeah, so what was Guy's last name?
Donaldson.
Yeah. He was an exceptional speaker. I know he had a crowd at the rec complex, and we followed that up by putting him in contact with Brooks, and we brought him in last Friday, and we had probably 200 students in attendance. I can just say he was an exceptional speaker. He captured our student body's imagination, and putting the hope on the future of our climate change as opposed to doom and gloom was well received. And I've got to say, we've got to get more electric bikes in Powell River. I mean, that guy was exceptional. I bought his book, and I intend to read it, which I haven't done yet, but he was a really top-notch speaker.
I agree.
Money well spent. Thank you.
I might mention that the social planning project that the JCP grant funded which I believe is going to be finished by the end of June, has had a little bit of changes going on. A couple of the people employed in carrying that forward have both found new jobs, including coordinator John Young. So there's a new coordinator, her name is Laura, and I don't know her last name, but met her in a meeting today, and she has a management background, seems quite confident. So under Lynn Adamson's capable hand, I'm confident that this will continue to progress to a really useful outcome for us. Instead of calling it the, what were the groundswell was?
Tapping the groundswell.
Tapping the groundswell, yes, Stephanie did it right. They're going to rename it to the Social Planning Project or something like that, so that it is just really clear what it's about, and it'll be carried forward that way. The Wellness Challenge that had its kickoff event on the 21st when we were having our last council meeting in April. Seems to be really going forward successfully. It's got almost 800 people who've gone through that challenge now. So by the end of the deadline for the challenge is the end of this month, and they're still out there getting more, getting more people on the list. It'll kind of take during the summer, everybody's supposed to be getting out there and getting healthy, doing things. That's step 2 in the challenge. And then step 3 is to take the tests again in the fall at some point. So there'll be another ramping up of this program to see if everybody got healthier. And then possibly this will be carried on next year as well. There's some money that's come out of some of the fundraising that will go to a youth initiative for youth health. That was discussed at the meeting today, but there wasn't any decision, so there's lots of good opportunities apparently, but so that's, anyway, there'll be some money, a few hundreds of dollars heading to something to stimulate youth health. I'd also just like to mention, I guess this is part of my community engagement, that the BC Ambulance Service has decided to allocate the community paramedic program most closely here to Texada Island. They've also designated 2 or 3 dozen more communities. They're all smaller communities than Powell River. And the objective there is for the paramedics in these smaller communities to be supported having other useful employment. And by that means keeping the paramedics in the communities. It's been a huge challenge for BC Ambulance, keeping people in communities where the call volume is low and compensation just doesn't justify people staying there when they have opportunities, or used to have opportunities in the north and various other places. So we have missed out on the program as it was defined. I was really hoping that we could use that. It seemed to roll in well with what the Division of Family Practice, possibly well with what they were planning, but I'm not going to close my eyes on that possibility, because our own group here is hardworking and deserving of that, and I see it as a promising potential program to fill in some gaps with elderly and chronically ill, and it sort of melds into other programs like the wellness program, or the what was the second meeting I went to today? The elder. There's an elder welcome wagon kind of program being considered to help try to connect the aging population in this town to resources, to sort of make looking after our aging population more streamlined and more effective and more efficient. So there's so many connections between many programs going on here. It's very exciting to see them, and really dedicated, talented people. So that's my engagement report. And so that brings us to the action list. Anybody have any concerns with the action list? Councilor Beechman.
Thank you. Through the chair. So number 30 prepare a report on the feasibility of implementing a program to help residents pay for installation of solar hot water, solar panels, heat pumps, etc. Has been on the action list for a year. One thing that I recently found out that I've mentioned to council is that, so we've subsequently found out the province of BC does not allow local improvement charges to be used to finance anything. So I think the first level of advocacy would be for us to send a letter to the Minister of Finance suggesting that they change the policy and legislation that allows municipalities to use local improvement charges to finance energy efficiency upgrades to homes and businesses.
As is done in Ontario and Nova Scotia.
And yes, correct. They had to lobby the government to change legislation.
Just out of curiosity, have we heard back at all from our petition to the climate leadership team in Victoria about our...
That was just comments, I think, on
Was
the
it?
climate leadership plan. So whether that will go anywhere, that's what I think the next thing would be for us to actually send a letter directly to the Minister of Finance and the Premier saying that, and we could cite the example of City of Toronto and Halifax being able to do this through taxation, because it's a really great model for homeowners to be able to afford to do that for their homes.
Could staff take direction here?
Yes.
Yes. Sir.
That's our will. Great. I would love to see that happen. Anything else?
Through the chair, has this topic been discussed at UBCM at all, or ABIC, or any of the...
Through the chair, not by council.
I think there might have been something on the last ABICC, but most of us weren't there.
Yeah, I was not at ABICC, so
I have all the motions right there in front of me. So talk amongst yourselves while I look it up.
I just have to note that, I think I mentioned this before, that I found it particularly surprising and perhaps a little dismaying that there didn't seem to be any recognition of those programs back east from all of the experts representing the different provincial ministries in the webinar that we attended.
Never heard of it.
It's shocking.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So through the chair, so just on this, this direction to staff, I believe this would carry much more weight if you would have a council resolution.
Yes, that's what I would prefer.
So this should go to council. So we would take this to the 19th. And I'll have an appropriate resolution prepared for your consideration.
Great, thank
Thank
you.
you. Terrific.
Thank you.
Councillor Hathaway?
And just while we're on it, it's not really the same topic, but while we're on EBICC resolution, I think it might be a good idea if the resolution we made, if we adjust it, because we didn't get heard at ABICC, for it to go to FCM.
Oh, FCM.
Which is probably the more appropriate body ultimately anyways, because it's federal jurisdiction.
I don't think it is.
Councillor Brewer?
I was going to suggest if we can get it done by the end of June, which is the deadline for UBCM, it's provincial jurisdiction, so I think we would want it to go.
Yeah.
We would want it to go to.
Fisheries and Ocean?
It's part of the charter. It's not
Oh,
Fisheries and Oceans.
we're talking solar, right?
She's talking.
No, I changed the topic, sorry. I know I'm like
Ninja.
Sorry, I was talking herring. Just because we're doing.
She's looking at her ABICC.
Okay, and not herrings, not herons.
Not blue herons.
Not blue herons, no.
So yeah, to council with a proposed resolution that we could then bring to UBCM is what I would suggest.
So now we're back to solar.
Yeah.
Solar, yeah.
I thought we were still on solar.
I thought we were too, actually.
I withdraw and apologize.
So what I can do through the chair is I can see what the deadline date is for resolutions to FCM. I know FCM, I believe, is early June.
June 2nd,
for-
5th.
So we may have
Yeah, we
missed that. And I believe your resolution was not heard because it was late at the
Yeah.
ABICC. Is there anything stopping you of sending that to UBCM?
No, could, yeah.
Got time.
The same
People think.
resolution.
Yes,
I think so,
I
for
agree.
sure.
Both of them.
UBCM for sure.
So I'm hearing direction that we include that on the upcoming council agenda for a UBCM resolution regarding herring.
Please.
That's exactly what I said.
Everyone.
Amazing.
Okay.
Through the chair, if I just may make reference to one item on, that mentions feral rabbits, number 12, we're in doing some bylaw update. The person that brought a letter together requesting staff to look into our rabbit problem in Cranberry, I ran into her the other day and she wanted me to pass on to staff how pleased she is with the solution that staff has come up with. She is very happy and she was basically bouncing off the ground when I ran into her, so. It's taking place and she's happier than a bunny.
Through the chair, on behalf of staff, thank you to staff, there's actually Madam Clerk made it all.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
You're welcome.
Councillor Hathaway, did you come up with that?
No, I'm not seeing anything on solar.
No?
I can search the database.
Yeah.
They're probably low.
Would we like to proceed and maybe come back and see if you find something? Why don't we do that? So on to unfinished business, 6.1 ALR exclusion. Oh, that was for Mayor Formosa.
I believe Councillor Brewer is prepared to speak on this.
Somewhat. I spoke with the mayor and he conveyed what he intended, what he was hoping to speak to. And maybe it was just for more clarity on his part, but regarding the SOCP amendment bylaw and the zoning amendment bylaw, but now that I read the header, we shouldn't even be discussing all three of these together, correct, Madam Clerk?
So through the chair, I think he wanted to talk more about the process. He didn't want to talk about the details of anything, but he wanted, I believe, he wanted to talk about when to bring these, when is this coming back to council?
Right.
So he can certainly talk about that, but not get into the details of the pros and cons of the three issues.
So as far as process, from his understanding is we could bring back the SOCP amendment bylaw and the zoning amendment bylaw at any time for adoption. But I think the discussion before was to hold off on adoption until the rest of the process is completed. And I think that was the recommendation
From staff.
Yeah. And I think what he was hoping to convey to the group was whether we shouldn't bring it back for adoption sooner. Why wait for the other process to play out? Just conveying his thoughts.
Councillor Spencer.
I had a question about how long we can be in a post-hearing environment. How long can we sit at third reading? Does it get stale dated at some point? So in theory, 5 years from now, a new council could just adopt the bylaw. Would we have to formally rescind the readings? Like what would be, I just was curious about the procedure there. Do you just leave it at third reading?
Chair, it could sit at third reading, and if I think 5 years from now, the council of the day said, oh gee, what are we gonna do with this? I think we'd get some advice maybe from staff on is this even still a good idea?
Yeah.
And handle it that way. On this topic, you had your public information, the city held its public information session last Wednesday night, and I believe there's gonna be a report from staff coming on the 17th on the outcome of the public information with a recommendation to council regarding, for council to decide if they wanted to support the exclusion or not. I believe that's what we had talked about, Mr. Gao.
Through the chair, that is what we talked about,
Yeah.
and whether we want to talk further about that, but.
So perhaps council maybe wants to wait till you get the report, and then maybe the mayor will be back by then, and then council can decide how they want to proceed.
Councillor Hathaway.
I think the issue is around, and we had the ALR exclusion meeting was the prime example, that when you're post-hearing, you're not allowed to get new information. Well, this is kind of an ongoing event in the city, so it's pretty hard to avoid, and I think the speeding up of this process was the mayor's concern, because at what point do we say, well, all right, I did get new information, we have to start over, and that would be the the outcome, I would presume, which isn't huge, you just start over. So, and as a result of coming to that conclusion, I did attend the ALR exclusion meeting and didn't get any new information that I didn't have before. So, on the zoning and the bylaw and the SOCP amendment. So, yeah, it just puts you in an awkward situation, because when somebody starts talking, you have to say, oh, sorry, can't talk about for a long period of time, and it mostly goes against my nature. So, yeah, it's difficult. If we can hold off till the report comes in on the ALR, and then whatever we decide, then we can move on with the bylaw, so the 17th, so that's not very long.
No.
It's 2 weeks from today.
That's Bert.
But it begs the question, why wait on the report regarding that process? Might as well wait until the ALC's made their determination to revisit the OCP. So we're not waiting on that report. That's irrelevant for the OCP and zoning amendment.
But that entire time, we can't get any new information. That's the difficulty.
Exactly. So I think that's the mayor's point, that his preference would be to bring it back for adoption Thursday. If you were here, that's probably what he would speak to. I'm just avoiding anyone talking about this at all. Stay home, everybody.
Through the chair, you have an option to direct staff to put it onto any agenda. It doesn't preclude you from choosing, deciding one way or the other.
In view of that, Madam Clerk, did you have information that the mayor would probably be back this Thursday?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I know he's at the mayor's caucus, and I'm not sure exactly of the return date.
Councilor Paul?
Yeah, if I may, through the chair, I understand that the mayor is planning to be back for the council meeting this Thursday, and I don't see anything wrong with placing it on the agenda for further discussion, and we'll deal with it on Thursday night.
So through the chair, if I can just caution you on one thing. The agenda's been published for Thursday. So you would be adding this as a late item Thursday night when you adopt your agenda. So the public has had no notice. I'll just remind you of that.
Thank you, I'm done.
Well, what's our pleasure as far as that goes then?
That's.
Wait for the mayor?
I think, I would like to see public notice, and if in the meantime somebody receives new information, so be it.
Yeah, we'll start it again.
So again, on that, through the chair, if you receive new information, whether you've had a conversation, whether you get an email, typically it would probably be an email, you forward it to staff. If it is new information, then simply what has to happen is you have to hold another public hearing, because the whole point of the public hearing is for the public to hear what each other has to say about the proposed land use. So we would have to hold another public hearing and present that new information so that the public can hear it.
But I don't think we should go ahead with a discussion at council level on this topic without it being on an agenda. Published, yeah, that's not where we want to go, I don't think.
Yep.
So back to your original suggestion that it go onto the agenda 2 weeks from now.
So through the chair, staff will be presenting a report on the public information session with the on the ALR exclusion. If it's this council, if council wants to include the SOCP and the zoning bylaw amendments on the next council meeting, not Thursday, but I believe it's the 19th, we can take that direction to include it on that council agenda so it's published, if that's your wish. And then you would also be getting the report from staff, and you can decide what you're going to do with that.
Could we defer this item for the mayor to the next committee of the whole meeting?
Through the chair, I think Madam Clerk is giving you an option. You can decide to proceed or not on the 19th.
Yeah.
What you're doing is, in case you do decide to proceed, you're giving sufficient notice.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so if we need a motion or whatever, I'll move that we take the matter to council on.
19th.
So what I'm hearing is that the SOCP and the zoning bylaw amendments regarding, that you've had your public hearing on, you would like those to be put on the May 19th council agenda for consideration.
Absolutely.
Is everyone in support of that?
No.
Okay, so I'm not getting unanimous consent,
Okay.
so I would need a motion.
Okay,
In
so
that regard.
that will be a motion.
Seconder? Any discussion with regard to this motion? Councilor Leishman?
I'm just not sure why we're putting it on when we were given direction by staff to that we wait to do their final adoption.
Through the chair, I appreciate your sentiment. You were advised by staff and you
Yes.
decided.
I agree with staff, so I don't see why we would bring it forward right now.
This point could be brought forward in that discussion, and we could just go back with the original suggestion of staff at that time.
Mr. Chair, I think you have a motion on the floor.
Okay, yes, sorry. I'm getting lost here.
So the motion I'm hearing is that staff be directed to include the SOC Amendment Bylaw 2436 and Zoning Amendment Bylaw 2437 on the May 19th council agenda for council's consideration.
For consideration of
We
adoption.
have,
For consideration, yes. So you're not deciding on anything here. All you're
Right.
doing is directing staff to put it on an agenda so you can discuss it and figure out what you want to do with it.
and we have, that's moved, and we have a seconder.
Yes, you do.
Okay, see, no more discussion. Let's put it to the vote. All in favor?
Could I
I'm
see
going to go in
opposed?
favor of that, too.
Could I see opposed, please?
And opposed.
So the motion passes with Councillors Skatchheim and Leishman opposed.
Okay, thank you.
There's a different question, because are we limited in any way that we can discuss this at that council meeting?
The two bylaws that you just,
Yeah.
that's what they're going to get put on the agenda for you to deliberate and discuss. Are you going to adopt them? Are you going to defeat them? You may even discuss whether you want even to deal with them, like.
Sure.
But at
Okay,
least
yeah,
they're on
it's
an
wide
agenda and the
open.
public's had the
Yeah.
notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not making any decisions here, you're just,
But through the chair, I
Yeah.
think the point is, in a duly notified meeting of council, you can't impinge on the post and public hearing environment. You're just proceeding with it.
Right,
Yeah.
right, yeah, so I know, maybe I'm being way too cautious, but, yeah, so that'll be wide open, we can decide then what we want to do, if it's an opportunity.
and if I can caution council, so you've asked that it be put on an agenda. By a majority vote, you've given that direction to staff. So any debate on whether or not you consider it on May 19th or you want to discuss it, that would happen at the council meeting.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk.
Okay.
Okay. We're done with that now. On to, so, we're done with item 6.1.
Yes, we are.
For now.
7.1, Carriage Houses, Councillor Leishman.
Thank you, Chair. So we have pretty much an emergency housing situation in Powell River. We have an extremely low vacancy rate. There's really very little rental housing available. It's a big problem. We've talked about through the years as a community about allowing carriage houses in the community, and it sort of leads to the bigger discussion of that our zoning bylaw needs to be rewritten. Our zoning bylaw was done in 2006. It does not align with our sustainable official community plan, which states that the city will ensure that the zoning bylaw accommodates the development of a variety of housing types, including single-family detached, cluster housing, townhouses, apartments, carriage houses, secondary suites, and seniors housing. So the fact that our zoning bylaw doesn't align with our SOCP is a bit of a problem. I mean, we're kind of dragging it out a long time, and I think that it is a big task to rewrite your zoning bylaw, but I think we need to start looking at that, because we're starting to see more and more communities changing and growing in a certain direction, and we're starting to see more and more rezonings of property, because they're just not fitting what the demands are of the community these days. So, so carriage houses is an easy one. It's also in our ICSP that we explore. One of the actions in strategic direction 3 for City Hall is explore allowing carriage houses and smaller guest cottages, micro homes on it says larger lots, but basically to increase density. So I think it's timely to ask staff to explore doing carriage houses as a standalone thing. And then at the same time, I think that a steering committee should be struck to start looking at a zoning bylaw rewrite. Because I think that the community needs to be engaged. I think there could be an initial committee of groundwork done on asking the builders, the developers, homeowners, community members for input into what changes would likely happen in a zoning bylaw rewrite. And then, you know, that's a process in itself. And then at some point, probably either staff here, if they have the capacity, or a consultant would typically kind of finalize the final zoning bylaw. But I think there's a lot of work that can be done. I've talked to people on a daily basis in the community in my line of work, developers, builders, homeowners, and people have opinions on what changes could be made in a zoning bylaw rewrite. So I think that there's some groundwork that could be done, started in the community at a community level or at a council appointed committee or something. So that's a very loaded topic, but there you go.
Through the chair, the director of planning is on vacation now.
I know.
Want to do that? No, he's got it on his work program for the summer, intending to bring carriage house enabling bylaw to, or amendments to the bylaw for early fall.
Early fall, okay.
Yeah. And he'd also like you to know that if he had his druthers, if he had his choice, he would start rezoning or a zoning bylaw amendment in early 2017. Because there's a great deal of work from the ICSP and the SOCP to get going. And to get into another process is a bit hard on advancing those plans.
So, but I don't see those as having to be all on the planner's desk. Like that's what I'm saying.
Actually, I do.
Well, no, but an initial, like there's a lot of information in the community around suggestions. So I'm just saying, I'm suggesting that an initial step might be engaging the community in some ideas around the zoning bylaw rewrite, and then just hand those over to the planning department for when they are ready to start.
Through the chair, I respect that, but that's what you pay your director of planning for. Just to lead that type of organization and process with you.
Okay.
So I think your staff is ready to support it, but to have a process without the benefit of the experience of the planning staff, I think is setting us up to make it a bit more difficult than it need be.
So he's got it slated for another year and a half away?
No, early 2017.
Oh.
But we could have that discussion, and I'm hesitant to have the discussion in his absence.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was away until I'd already asked.
Yeah, but the carriage house is on the plan to be started within the next 6 to 8 weeks. But the zoning, again, we've done an SOCP, an ICSP, and his hope is not to have an involved public process until 2017 on the zoning because of other works, and I can't do justice to all the other works.
Okay. So does that put carriage houses on the action list, or has he just got it on his own action list?
It's on his work list.
It's on his work list?
Yeah. Through the chair, as I've said, the action list that comes from council is about 20% of senior staff's work, 80% self-identified. He's already got it in the ICSP and advancing it.
Okay, great.
So also through the chair, you've got a community roundtable coming in June, I believe, on sustainability, and perhaps there'd be conversations around affordable housing and these kinds of things that would come up there, and that would be part of the community engagement process.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, on to 7.2 Heritage Protection, Councillor Scottson.
Thank you, through the chair. This might also be encompassed in a zoning bylaw revision, but it's something that has been talked about, residents in town site certainly, for quite some time, and I know the Townsite Heritage Society has actually already done some legwork, which Ann Nelson was so good as to email it to me, which I circulated to staff and council earlier today. I'd like to get this on the action list radar just to get it going. I think we've been extremely fortunate in the town site. It's a nationally recognized historic district, has been since '96, I think, and the city of Powell River's really afforded no protection. We've just been really lucky that people have been moving to the town site, recognizing it for its heritage values, and taking it upon themselves to do careful, thoughtful renovations of these historic buildings. But there's nothing whatsoever stopping anybody from buying any property in town site and tearing it down. You know, there was a home that was bought 3 or 4 years ago, and it had been left to sit vacant, and really the owner was an absentee owner, had rented it out, quite low rent, had never done anything to it, which was actually a blessing because it was 98% original. But it was almost condemnable when this couple bought it. And they have since brought it back to be, pardon me, one of the nicest houses in town site, which is now going to be part of the garden tour this year. Check it out, it's right across from City Motors. It's a beautiful home. But that's just luck. That house could easily have been torn down. It would have been much cheaper and easier to tear it down and put a vinyl-clad modern house there. So I just feel really strongly about it, and there is already legwork done by the Heritage Society, and I'd like to just get it on the radar with direction to staff to proceed.
Through the chair, could I just clarify this? So I did, thank you very much, I saw the email that you passed on from Ann Nelson. That email talked about a town site development permit area.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's about new things that would happen. Heritage protection is about protecting existing structures and buildings. So we have to get the terminology right. And I used to, as you know, I used to work for the Village of Cumberland, which had 1,100 houses, of which 400 qualified as heritage at the time, so we were quite involved with it. So we have the ultimate advantage in a designated federal heritage site, which is huge. And then you have to have, in the name of heritage protection, so you're trying to save a structure, and it can be a road as much as a building. It has to be eligible for the provincial registry. And then our bylaw, like most bylaws, requires voluntary registration of a house into that. And I believe there are 5 structures, I don't know if you know, Jason, but I think there are 5 structures currently protected. So you're right in that they have to volunteer. And the reason I know this is the old regional district office is one of the protected buildings. So if somebody wants to do the right thing, there is protection. And it's protection, really, in my words, from a future owner. So that's one thing. You can tighten that up. There is the potential to have a bylaw that can intercede and stop demolition, but we don't have that. So that's another tool we can do. And then the town site development permit area, of course, is to address future development so that it might be in a style. For example, Brooks High School would be a classic case of a new building that respected an old architecture, and if there was a development permit, it would be the poster child for how to do it. So is that the whole spectrum you're interested in?
I'm concerned about existing homes and structures that a lot of them have been renovated, but giving people tools and encouragement to bring it back and not just take out heritage elements and replace them with, you know, something more affordable, whatever. Something that's going to protect existing structures more. And like I said, anybody can come in and buy a house, tear it down, and build something completely not fitting with the town site.
So it is truly structure protection. Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Leishman?
Thank you. So I think what Ann Nelson probably, she used the terminology development permit area, but I think she was probably trying to refer to our sustainable official community plan under section 3.6.2 town site planning policies, where it says the city will work toward the designation of a heritage conservation area. And as shown on Schedule G, under the Local Government Act, for purposes of protecting the Palmer Town Site National Historic District of Canada. So she wants to actually designate that area like a historic protection area that actually does restrict by bylaw demolition or contrary renovation of those buildings. Because yeah, we have the registry, the voluntary registry, which so far is just public buildings, I think, and not, well, in private buildings, but not residences, really. I don't think there are any residences on there.
The old RD office is now private.
Is now a private residence, yeah. So, so I have talked to Anne about expanding that program of expanding a voluntary registry of town site houses, but that that's a whole nother thing that's going to require a bit of work. But I don't know what would be involved in pursuing prior to our zoning bylaw rewrite, like pursuing a heritage conservation area as a standalone before we get into the zoning bylaw rewrite.
So if you look through the chair in the SOCP, Schedule G is actually a map of the town site, and it's shaded, and it says proposed town site conservation areas. So there's your kicking off point. The OCP gives you your guiding principles. A number of years ago, in the early 90s, there was actually money available for heritage protection, and I worked in the planning department at that time. We went through an exercise where we were looking at, we did a survey of residences in the town site and trying to get buy-in on a registry. And at the time, and this is early 90s, people really balked at it, and the feedback was, well, I don't want to be told what my house should look like and what colored paint I should use. And so I think we've evolved since then, but it would certainly require community engagement, not only just with the town site, but with the community.
Yeah.
Through the chair, staff would seek direction.
Direct staff to recommend steps forward for a heritage conservation area as
per the OCP.
As per the OCP.
Section 3.6.2I.
Thank you.
Great. Good, okay. 7.3, potential for a youth council participant. Outstanding achievement scholarship from the city. Councillor Palmer.
Thanks to the chair. Now, I brought this forward to youth council because at one point, depending on who you talk to, you get a different story. When I first broached the topic about our youth council members getting credit for their participation on our youth council, I was told that we couldn't make that happen for credit at that point in time. But since it has come across the bow of the school board, and they would like to join up with our youth council in some way, shape, or form, which we're bringing to an agenda on Wednesday of this week for discussion. I have been told by higher up that credit is possible. So, learning that this week, things have kind of changed in going down this road, because the thought was, well, if we can't get them credit, let's see if maybe the city we could get them a scholarship to the city, since the city does not have an existing scholarship that they hand out through Brooks that I'm aware of. So I was going to broach that topic, but now things have changed, so I don't know where we're going to go with it, but I suggest we take it back to the youth council.
Yeah, when Councillor Palm brought it up at the previous youth council meeting as an idea, it was more, wasn't it more so like an outstanding achievement? One youth council member that sort of maybe deemed out over the course of the year as outstanding achievement, there may be a scholarship opportunity there.
Yeah.
I like that idea. It's on top of the credits that all the participants can get, it's just kind of an added motivation. So I say we can ask well, of course they're gonna think it's a good idea. I mean, I like that idea, because it is just, as a separate thing, like, I think the school credit is great, but I like the idea of a separate little motivational scholarship.
Councilor Brewer.
I like the idea of a scholarship that the city provides to Brooks students.
Youth council.
And I really, well, no, the other idea that maybe the city doesn't actually provide a scholarship right now. Having sat in for the mayor 1 year, I was amazed at how many community groups provide scholarships to the Brooks grad. So I think it would be great to establish a scholarship of some kind for Brooks.
This is different.
Yeah, no, it's still related to a scholarship idea, but I'm not crazy about the idea of outstanding achievement for a youth council rep. It'd be kind of like us having an annual best counselor of the year.
We don't. What?
So I like the idea of the credits. I like the idea of the city providing a scholarship to some Brooks grad, and we can come up with criteria what it is. But I'm not crazy about trying to pit them against each other. I like the idea of promoting the teamwork. Although they all show up for youth council meetings an hour ahead of time.
Right?
And this is precisely what I would like it to go back to the youth council.
Let's hear what they would like to do, what they think.
Yeah. Any other comments? Okay, so refer to youth council for comments,
Yes.
perhaps?
Yeah.
Can I ask
discussion.
For discussion.
For discussion, yes, and then return to our esteemed body.
Great.
Good.
If they want, or they might just die there.
It might just die.
Just be received.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for your input.
Okay, we have no motion to go in camera. Questions from the press, Mr. Bolster?
Just a little bit of clarification about, I'm sorry to bring this back up, but about what you've said that you're going to do in proceeding with this bylaw amendments for the property in town site, the private campus. Just a little bit more clarity about the thinking there. What it is, if it's adoption that you're going to do. It doesn't sound like that, but I wasn't 100%. So.
So if I can, through the chair. So the two bylaws, the SOCP 2436 and the zoning amendment bylaws 2437, those are the proposed land use bylaws for the PRC lands proposed for the school. Council has given the bylaws 2 readings. They have held a, they've held a public hearing. And so what's left to do is council to consider 3rd reading and adoption. They can do that in 2 separate meetings, or they can do it all in 1 meeting. So what we heard today was they wanted the 2 bylaws to go to the May 19th council meeting, where they will consider what it is they want to do with those 2 bylaws. Is that
Okay.
Okay.
So a 3rd reading and adoption, is that the same thing, or is that
No,
separate?
no. So when you, I'll give you bylaw 101.
All right.
First reading introduces it. Second reading, it sets out how you think it's going to look. 3rd reading is, this is the bylaw. If you want to make any changes after 3rd, you have to rescind 3rd, go back to 2nd, make the change, and then go back to 3rd reading. 4th reading essentially is adoption. So we call it 3rd reading and adoption. Okay, and most bylaws, council can have 1st, 2nd, and 3rd reading all in 1 meeting. But the Local Government Act says if it's a land use bylaw, which is OCP and zoning, you have 1st and 2nd reading, then you have to have a public hearing or public consultation. But it does permit council to adopt a zoning or an OCP bylaw amendment, 3rd and adoption in the same meeting. Everything else requires a day between 3rd reading and adoption. So they have time to think about what they want to do with it. So council could on the 19th, it'll be on the agenda, they could give 3rd reading and adoption. They could just give, I believe you've given 3rd reading, that's right, at your last meeting. So it's had 3rd. So what they will need to decide is adoption, or do they want to hold off until they hear from the ALC, because that other process is running at the same time. That's what's coming forward then.
So that would be my next question then. Is it wise to change the zoning on property that you don't know what's going to happen?
I'm going to, through the chair, I'm going to have to stop you, Chris. That's
Okay.
playing with post
Yeah.
public
Okay,
hearing.
sorry.
It's a hell of a question, but council is not to have new input.
Okay. Thanks. That's all.
Okay.
Mr. Whitaker?
I do have one question, actually, Your Worship. In regard to 6.1, there was a remark made about having public notice. Did not public notice happen the moment you all agreed to do that because it's live, or is it a prescribed public notice?
Through the chair, I believe that was me, Roger, and I believe what I was saying is it's in a publicly notified meeting that it's considered, rather than a meeting that has a minimum time. For example, to go from today's meeting to Thursday's council meeting might not be sufficient public notification for someone who wanted to attend.
Right.
So if I can further, Roger, that's why we publish the agendas the Friday before the meeting, whether it's committee of the whole or council, so that the public has lots of time to not only see what's going on at the meeting, but to read the attachments and the reports and whatever, so they're fully informed.
So is that prescribed?
It's in the procedure bylaw, when things get published, the deadlines for when things go on agendas, and then the publishing. I mean, council can certainly add late items to the agenda. We've heard them do that. But there are some things from my perspective with communicating with the public that if there's a big issue, that it would be nice if the public knew that council was going to talk about it, because maybe they want to view it, or maybe they want to come and speak to it, or ask questions. And if it just gets added at a meeting, how do they know?
Right, so it's not just the whim of whatever is happening right now.
Well, we have to be considerate of the public, because that's the whole accountability and transparency thing.
Right.
It's so important.
Thank you.
Precautionary principle. From the gallery, Mr. Orchison.
Last Wednesday, wasn't it, public
Yeah.
meeting?
Yeah.
That was the exclusion application. We heard from city staff, this is on the SOP and the zoning bylaw changes. We heard from city staff that the process would be that we would get a report from staff, council would vote on the exclusion, and the commission would decide on it, on the application. And at a later date, council would consider the zoning bylaw amendments and the SOP amendments. So what I'm hearing today is council is going to consider on the 19th not to follow the direction that staff advised the public of. Is that correct?
Through the chair, I could, yes,
Yep.
but
Yep.
it's well put, George.
Yep.
It's what staff advised them on, and I would characterize the agenda item on the 19th as a reconsideration of their previous decision.
Right. Now, second issue is, I'm not going to get into any specifics about the two bylaws, so don't be concerned there. I do have a concern, and I would actually ask staff, professionals, to confirm this prior to council considering this recommendation or motion at the 19th meeting. And that is that my understanding is of the law is that should the commission not approve taking the land out of the ALR, that, and if the city's decided zoning and SOP changes prior to that, give final approval of it, my opinion is that wouldn't be proper, because under the Act, the ALC Act, the official community plan and the zoning bylaws have to be consistent with the principles and the purposes of the Act enumerated at Section 6 of the Act to protect farmland. So to have zoning bylaws to let you build dozens of apartment buildings would not be proper. So I would ask if staff could look into that and maybe provide some advice, excuse me, for council prior to their consideration of the issue on May 19th. Thank you.
Through the chair, staff will do that as you suggest.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, motion to adjourn. Councilor Singh, Councilor Scott, all in favor?